Hi, everyone. This is Dr. Clifford Porter with Texas Direct Medical Care. I thought I'd do a quick update on COVID-19. I get so many calls, do a quick little thing so people can have a view of it and sort of get a better idea of what we're dealing with these days. So today's January 8th, 2022, and I'm certain everything will change in 12 to 24 hours. So first of all, we'll just come down here. This is only about 10 slides long, and 8 of them have data in them. So real quick, we'll talk about vaccines, natural immunity, and the current best treatments. There's a lot of controversies about these, ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine. I'll touch on those too. And then some of the other controversies briefly, but we're going to focus on what's actually working the best for it and a little bit of what's going on with the actual medical science of this. So a lot of questions about the vaccines. Why have they failed? They haven't failed. They're not breakthrough infections. What it is a misunderstanding, and well-intended people have put up simplistic understanding of vaccines as curing everything, but that's not how they work. The vaccines aren't attacking the virus. Vaccines trigger your body to create antibodies in the long term. That's what does it. All vaccines help your body create antibodies so you don't see it for the first time. So in essentially, it helps your body respond faster. And respiratory spread viruses like the flu and COVID, your body has to respond to. So you can get actually a little bit of an infection, or it can get a foothold in you before the antibodies that your body's developed from vaccines responds. So it's not sterile immunity. We see that in other types of vaccines and other types of, measles and other types of bacterial ones we use as well. So breakthrough, wrong term, suggests these things fail, and that's not true, whether it's prior immunity or the vaccines. So when people get a vaccine, why do you get sick? Well, you don't get sick. That's your immune system responding. And so the achiness, short fever, I got tired after my second Moderna shot. That's your body responding. That's the immune system. And it mobilizes all these new antibodies to fight this thing, the vaccine, that looks like a foreign invader. And it sees there's nothing there. And it's like, oh, stand down, smoking, we got to move on. And that's why it goes away so quick. So when we're looking at these things, that tells you your body's working. A good thing, as I put there. The benefits far outweigh the risk in people who are at higher risk, older, heart disease, diabetes, poorly controlled diabetes, poorly controlled hypertension, not asthma, curious enough, but yes, emphysema. So rare side effects, they are real. So when they downplay them, so everything's perfectly safe. Nothing in life is perfectly safe. Even my cup of coffee is not perfectly safe. But clotting in Johnson & Johnson, it really occurred 1 in 100,000. Now, blood clots in COVID in the lungs occurred in 1 in 1,000 people. Those numbers might be a little off. Omicron, a good deal milder, but Delta, I had a case of it. Person stopped taking aspirin, had that effect. Myocarditis, real side effect, rare. The numbers range from 1 in 15,000 to 1 in 50,000. Young men with the mRNA, Pfizer and Moderna vaccine. It's an inflammation around the heart, quite often the muscle aches you might get with the flu. Now, there's some rare cases of longer-term side effects with it that are still undergoing investigation, and possibly one death in New Zealand, but still under investigation for it. But for most people, hundreds of millions of vaccines given, pretty small odds, but nonetheless real. And then a stress reaction. When your body's responding to anything, some people do not respond well to stress. But the higher risk individuals, it is a case risk to benefits. Of course, I see COVID all the time. Of course, I got the vaccines. So prior infection, it does create better natural immunity. Belittling it and downplaying it, as was done by some public health officials, caused enormous confusion. They just didn't want people to have a good old-fashioned pox parties where people get together to swap it. That's not a good way to get a vaccine. Is someone at risk put themselves at risk through an infection. Vaccines far, far safer. Again, same thing with natural immunity. Also not perfect sterile immunity. Now with Delta, I didn't see any cases of anyone having a secondary infection when they had been infected, 1.5 years earlier. With Omicron, I'm seeing some very mild cases, but it's sufficiently different enough that some people are getting some mild infections from, but it's mild. It's 1 to 2 days, feeling crummy. It's a cold, and that's it. But I still say vaccines better than risking a bad infection. So what about vaccine after infection? For people who are healthy and young, the medical evidence just isn't there for it. Now, those at higher risk, a vaccine giving another antibody gives another layer of protection and is beneficial. But with young and healthy, not much. In fact, huge controversy, the FDA vaccine committee actually voted against boosters in people who are young and healthy. Put the vaccines to people who need them, particularly in other parts of the world. But overruled by the CDC leadership, and politics got involved, badly affecting practice of medicine. We practice medicine here, not politics. So current treatments, what's really important? We focus on early outpatient treatments. It isn't just like, suck it up, and if it gets worse, go to the hospital. That's not what we do here. Monoclonal antibodies have worked the best. Now, mono one cloned antibodies. So they basically synthetically create an antibody to inject through IV to directly neutralize the virus. And this has worked very, very well. As these viruses changed a bit, they've had to reformulate these, and certain brands are working better than others in Omicron versus Delta. But the earlier, the better, and I try to get everyone as much as possible. Other treatments, aspirin. I tell everyone to take a daily aspirin unless they have a significant bleeding risk, like prior stroke or a bleeding ulcer. Because 1 in 1,000 people can get a blood clot, taking a daily aspirin has significantly reduced that. Not certain if that's a risk factor in Omicron for blood clots, but it clearly was in Delta, which got deeper into the lungs. The next thing we do, people have significant breathing issues, coughing. It hurts to breathe. It feels heavy to breathe. That suggests inflammation in the lungs. That's why we use budesonide. It's a steroid that's inhaled through nebulizer, and we get those here so we can get people nebulizer treatment. Acts directly on the lungs without the steroid absorbing and hindering your immune system. And there's good research on that shows that that's very effective. And sometimes we use another asthma type medication called ipratropium to help ease the work of breathing for people where it's particularly painful, but budesonide has shown great benefit. Another thing is, it's okay to suppress the cough. You don't have to go get Mucinex and cough stuff up. This isn't a bacterial pneumonia or influenza type thing where there's junk in the lungs. This is inflammation of the lungs and the upper airways. So just the coughing is irritating. It hurts. It wears you out. Keeps the rest of the family away. It's okay to suppress the cough. Don't feel like you have to cough stuff up. Other simple treatments, decongestants, good old-fashioned Sudafed, unless you have a heart problem, hypertension, or Zyrtec even twice a day, once in the morning, once in the evening, if congestion is particularly bad. And that's also stops some of those other symptoms, get people better. And then next, chicken soup or tortilla soup, whatever you like. Nutrition and fluid works better than the sports drinks, but you can supplement with those too. But when you're sick and you don't feel like eating, and we use nausea medicine when people get nausea as well, Zofran, for example. When you get dehydrated just breathing with a fever, your higher humidity of your breathing and you get dehydrated. So get something that's got fluid in you and nutrition. The supplements, people take vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc, and they may help, but if you have a good nutrition status, these aren't of significant help, and they are not a cure. Several patients said, I've tried all these things, why did I get sick? Because they're just nutrition. It's not part of your system to fight these types of infections. And as I've mentioned several times, Omicron looks far much more milder, and it's almost a cold to most people. It's spreading extremely rapidly, but it's mild to humans, unlike Delta that got in the lungs, which caused significant pain and significant difficulties. What about serious cases? And I've had a couple of these. Omicron is a much higher prevalence in the labs and hospital data, so it's much in the community. But there's still Delta and these other ones out there. They cause people more serious illness. And again, inflammation in the lungs hinders oxygen and CO2 exchange. And that's one of the most dangerous things that puts people in the hospital and kills them, along with higher blood clot risk. So what do we do in these cases? We start with budesonide because in the first week of an infection, your body's building its own antibodies. We don't want to interfere with that. So we use the budesonide to cut that down. But what if someone comes to me late? They delayed treatment. Please don't delay treatment. They delayed treatment and their oxygen saturations are dropping below 95%. It should be 98, 99% on a regular basis. We use dexamethasone. Excellent evidence shows it works. Cheap, effective, and well-tolerated steroid cuts down inflammation and helps those lungs to start doing better. And we get people home oxygen therapy. Get more oxygen, get through those barriers that are the inflammation is causing, so you can heal. You need oxygen to heal. Now, I used hydroxychloroquine early, and it seemed to have effect very early in the 2020. But as the year wore on and there's new strains developed, they just simply lost their efficacy. They're no longer effective competitive inhibitors against these new and stronger viruses. So didn't see much benefit with it. Hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin I use for other purposes, and they are wonderful drugs. No longer in COVID. It's unfortunate it took away a good tool, but I got other things, okay, that are cheap and effective. We can get it for people early, outpatients, so you can avoid the hospital. I love my guys in the hospital, but cafeteria food is never good. So as I went off a little bit there on the ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine, worked early, no longer effective. And I've seen a lot of people, because of the politics of the vaccines, the politics of mandates and vaccine mandates, masking mandates in kids, and perhaps the greatest evil in this thing, man-made, was the censorship of medical evidence, medical science. And so people look for other options, thinking that I've heard all kinds of theories, but ivermectin isn't a savior. It's not a silver bullet. And hoping it works based on early data from other parts of the country that did not include the more seriously ill is where that data got skewed. And so people who try use ivermectin for preventive purposes or start using higher and higher doses, they'd come to me 2-3 weeks later. And sadly, a couple of people came to me very late, ended in the hospital, ventilated, and died. Very, very sad. So don't let censorship in medicine think other alternatives are better. Stick with the evidence, look for the evidence, and not just little bits here and there, because we're all susceptible to that type of unintended bias. Take the evidence in total and look for the best evidence you can at the time. So other controversies, a lot of stuff, and I put some of these things on my website, and you can look at that on the COVID page. And if you're reading this, maybe you got it off that COVID page. There's no long-term effects of vaccines. There are short-term effects that can become long-term effects, like blood clot from the Johnson & Johnson, or possible myocarditis from some of the mRNAs. But those are long-term effects that occurred immediately. Nothing pops out months or years down the road. Never happened with any vaccine, and the mRNA technology isn't that different. We've been working on this for 40 years. And so nothing pops out later. And one of the current theories is that if the vaccines aren't as effective, like they said, how do we know something's going to pop out later? Your vaccines are degraded in your body within 12 to 36 hours. They're gone. The body's now created antibodies. So there's nothing there. And there's been a lot of crazy theories put out there by people who, frankly, I say ducks, but what this sounds as a duck made, for whatever political agenda, emotional agenda, or just people who are just off in their theories. One was spike proteins line the lumen, lining of the back of the blood vessels, your vasculature, and causing it to create blood clots. Spike proteins are extremely small. Your lumen is populated with all kinds of molecules like platelets, neutrophils, variety of other things that help regulate the vasculature. So there's just made up theories, and then people just run with it because they can use an emotional argument. Let's not use emotion affect our medical judgment. So anti-vax rhetoric, some of it's well-intended. People are absolutely convinced, certain things have certain effects, and we can talk through those with good, honest people. And then there's just some flat-out frauds. People like Robert F. Kennedy profit off it. Peter Wakefield, who did the autism is caused by vaccines, he was caught. He made mistakes, and then he decided to become an anti-vaxxer because he couldn't make his millions trying to undermine others. A guy out there says Robert Malone. He says he invented the mRNA. When you just do a search, Robert Malone, mRNA inventor, and you're going to come up with a whole bunch of websites that expose him. That's absolute nonsense. He was a co-author on some early papers years ago, and he didn't stick with it. Other people did, and they did well with the patents. It's utter nonsense, the stuff he's been spewing. He should not be censored. But that's where medical discussion can actually reveal these things. But look at all the evidence. Don't let all the fluff in the way cause confusion. So vaccines, safe and important for those at risk, except for the very, very rare side effects. They're real, but that's a risk to benefit analysis we must always do every day. Prior immunity is excellent. Some people can still have mild cases of Omicron, but it's the best protection. But if you're older and at risk, it's not the best way to get immunity is play chicken with a serious disease. Our current treatments, earlier the better. We can do a lot of things done early, and sometimes up to a couple weeks out. It's blunting that inflammatory response to let your body heal itself. Ultimately, that's what we do with viruses. I like bacteria because I can kill them. Viruses are harder. Only our immune system, our own white blood cells, can actually kill them. So what we do is we help your body heal itself. Ivermectin, hydroxyzine, sadly, they don't work. So we do other things. And all these other controversies, beware the fraudsters. Look at all the medical evidence. Let us know how we can help you. If we can't help you here locally, we'll find other people can help you in other parts of the state and the city. Have any questions, shoot us an email, give us a call. Also have a clinic down in Buda now, where we have our excellent staff there follows a lot of the same guidelines. If you have any questions, reach out to us. We'll help you out.